Good evening, Littleton, and welcome to the select board meeting for Monday, February 10th. Start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a fairly quick agenda for tonight. We'll start with reading of the mail. Then we'll do an update from Sam Park. At 6:50, we'll talk about the DPW snow and ice budget. Execute a document for the Mass Clean Water Trust Water Infrastructure Project. Have a presentation from the Transportation Advisory Committee Council. Update on the Neshoba Boards of Health transition, and disclosure for a municipal employee having a financial interest. Then we'll have select board updates, public input, dirigible one-day liquor license, and then we'll approve meeting minutes and adjourn promptly before 8:30. So we'll start with the mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the select board. We've got some vacancies in some of our town boards, and particularly the Agricultural Commission, Conservation, Cultural Council, Economic Development, Historical Commission, Master Plan Implementation Committee, Permanent Municipal Building Committee, Transportation Advisory Council, and Zoning Board of Appeals. And one appointment by the school committee would be on the Finance Committee. Everyone sign up to receive public notifications for the town. Go to www.littletonma.org/subscribe. Get alerts from community impacts, public safety activity, town meeting changes, town events, public health concerns, transportation issues. We also have a gift acceptance form for EHS in the amount of $1,000 from Peter Barbella and Barbella family for the TRED fund, tax relief for the elderly and disabled. Thank you very much for your generosity. Another one for EHS from Mr. David Plummer, $500 for new building gift fund, a donor wall for the new center on Shattuck Street. And thank you very much for that. And we have another one for EHS from Sandra
Casali.
Thank you. Sally, for the amount of $2,500, a new building gift fund, room naming, naming of billiards table number 2, which is excellent. And proper paperwork behind that. We also have an email from Littleton Robotics, the first robotics competition team 6328 Mechanical Advantage is hosting an open house on Saturday, February 22nd from 3 to 5 p.m. at 20 Harvard Road, Building D on the Patriot Beverages campus in Littleton. The students have been working hard since kickoff on January 4th to complete this year's robot by March 1st for their first competition. They would love to show what they have been working hard on and to say thank you for your support. Please feel free to forward the invitation to others as appropriate.
So I've been to that event the past couple of years. It's great to go down and see what they've done. I highly encourage everyone to go down and look at their robot, and the kids get very excited telling you all about it. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
that's fantastic. And that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Park.
Thank you. As you know, we consider ourselves, this is just informal, right? So I have to say my name and all that stuff. Sam Park, owner of The Point. I was going to have a few notes, but I think this should be easy. Periodically, I like to come to all the boards and just basically share where we are, where we've been, and where we're going with The Point. It's a pretty big project. We've completed about half of, maybe more than half of a total of 500,000 square feet. And quite candidly, between COVID, which was one massive delay, the impending, the doom and gloom of inflation, followed by the big box pullback of that whole era, then followed by increasing interest rates, we've been kind of forced to sit tight for a while. But we're thinking most of that, since we've survived all those 4 hits, we should be coming out of the ground again in the near future. So with that in mind, I thought I'd just give a quick overview of what we have for anyone who might not be familiar with it. If it helps, I just have 2 words, but I have some handouts. If you'd like to just.
Chuck and Gary couldn't make it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sammy.
Basically. So basically, quite a while back, almost, it's about 540,000 square feet of total development. And it's basically, if you look on where it's got market basket, the start on some retail buildings, Emerson, emergency care, Talos, fancy, Metro, and some retailers in this, so with that in mind, given the challenges we faced since 2018 and 2019, we've got a little on hold. So we're taking ready to start looking at it going possibly for these 4 remaining buildings, which have not been built. And include what we call buildings J, K, and M, and it includes basically the back of office, like thing of market baskets building, which is close to Community Line, which is not really retail business. It's held up for them, but it's a spare business. And so with that said, that's pretty much what we're getting ready to embark on. With this, it's started now, we test markets about what we can look forward to doing. We're focusing on primarily entertainment, retail uses. In this portion up here, building K and J. This building is set aside for hopefully what it resurfaces again as a second hotel. There's been a lot of hotel interest. We actually had permitted all plans for a hotel here when we did the Marriott. And then fortunately that kind of died with the interest rate environment and what have you. So we hope that they come back to do that one. I think Marriott has the exclusive rights to do that hotel if they want to do it. So we're hopeful. If it's not, there will probably be another use of the section. But that's pretty much it. And so when you go up there, you'll see that there's green fence and a little trailer that kind of shows, a little sign for O'Neill and have the, that behind that is where the next building will go. Then we'll move on to that last building here. Then holding this one on the highway for hopefully another hotel concept. So that's pretty much it. It was always better to try to get back in fiction. We are getting ready to start on the second phase of our wastewater treatment plant. We permitted plant to be built in 2 phases. The first phase basically supports what you show as existing. And this second plant will basically accommodate those 4 buildings. How it was designed, permitted years ago. And that's it. So, obviously we've never been shy to share where we are with things. I would like to think that we're previously accessible if anyone has any questions or concerns about the development. We're always around, so what people have my email, get me they can.
Does anyone questions? So you said the building K is the next one
Yes.
likely going up, and do you have timeframes on anything or?
Next month. Oh, I'm sorry. Literally this next month. And we would hope that would be under construction sometime this summer. But it could, it's still subject to us getting some lease commitments for that building. We are going to do a kind of a brainstorming session over the next couple months on what uses we could put there. As you may recall, we are permitted for mixed use of retail, office, entertainment, restaurants, what have you. but it's always somewhat of a mix that changes with time as you build out things. So we're in the markets right now, trying to identify which types of tenants make the best fit for the center. If there's, uses you think the town needs, we're happy to consider those as well. But we would think that possibly by this time next year, we'll be sort of announcing real plans and the buildings and tenants for them. So it'll probably be a solid year of still, unfortunately, back of house type work on it.
So the goal is to start on the wastewater treatment plant over the summer and a new building.
We've always known that the plant needed to be built in two phases, and, contrary to fact and fiction, there is, the plant had to be sized in two phases because you can't oversize a plant. It has to be, you probably found that out with your own sewer studies. You have to have a plant that fits the demand. It's sometimes a little bit of an art. We've used a local company called Small Water Systems. They are running the plant now. It's running pretty well. We're about to do a quick normal 10-year maintenance upgrade on the plant this month. But that's somewhat independent of the fact that we also have to then build a second plant, have it ready and permitted and built before we can build any of the additional buildings. So that's hopefully we should basically be ready to move forward with that as early as the summer. I don't know if we'll start the construction this summer, but we're hoping to start the construction on the second plant this summer in anticipation that the following year we'll have identified real tenants for the new building.
And the building, do you have an idea, like the design of the building? Is it going to, of the existing buildings, which one is it most similar to?
What we'd like to bring there is, quite frankly, is a little bit of like the economics of building it, the economics of what people can pay to do it aren't quite in line yet. But we'd like to expand on the entertainment component. We found that a lot of the town really wants things that they can do more than shop. So things like bowling alleys are on the top of the list, something that would, I know people have recommended indoor pickleball, things that are a larger scale but are really community based. I'm not sure the ice rinks will work there because of the competing ice rinks in the area, but ice rinks would be great actually if we could do it. But we'd probably need some subsidies from the state or town to get that done. That said, I think in the forefront of what we do as a company, I think the entertainment and combined with some retail infill is probably what we're hoping to get. We've just built a bowling alley up in Tingsboro, one of our other centers, and we'd hopefully once they've sort of stabilized over the next year there, we can get them attracted back down here to do a Wamesset type, some type of large scale entertainment complex.
And you envision the same type of use for Building J?
Building J is a little different because it's more on the back of the hill, so it'd be a quieter type use. It is all likely, we've kind of earmarked that more for some medical office type uses that I think would be very beneficial, especially given all the craziness going on in the healthcare industry. So I know we've been approached by some R&D companies that would like to be here in Littleton. We're still exploring. We don't have real, I'm scared to say something that we can't deliver on, quite frankly. So, but it's, we're open for suggestions for K and we're just kind of setting aside hoping that we can get the hotel economics to work again.
So leaving M aside,
Yeah.
K is probably, if all goes well, K
Next
is
summer,
being
we
built
should be
next
in
summer,
construction.
And J is probably the following year,
Correct.
and I is just subject to.
I is really owned by Market Basket. It's their spare FAR. They've had different ideas that they've looked at putting there, back of house office, back of house, stuff just for their own employees. So I really can't tell you what, they might just find that the parking is the most valuable thing they can do because it's an awesomely successful Market Basket. Probably one of their more expensive ones, but they definitely claim it's one of the most, one of the highest grossing stores in their chain, what I'm told. So it's a good spot for them.
So I is just subject to whatever they're, so
It's
I
really
could come in at any
I
point.
could come in at any time. I have a feeling I is not their focus right now. They happen to own the big vacant building that runs next to Market Basket, which they claim they should have tenants there as well this year. So frankly, what's driving our decision to be here now is that we understand that they have tenants for that building, what is known as Building B. And as soon as they announce those tenants, we'll feel comfortable moving forward with the Building K.
So,
Sure.
I know there were, the Mass DEP had some issues with the first phase of the treatment plan.
Sure.
So so I assume that the second phase is not related to that upgrade or corrections or whatever.
So just for the record, what happened on the first phase, we had hired a company called NSU, a National Utility Company, to design, build, and operate the plant. It turned out that some of it wasn't a volume issue as much as it was kind of an octane issue. As I was described to me, and I'm not a sanitary sewer engineer, the strength of the bioorganics was higher than they originally estimated for the plant. So they had to do some adjustments to something called aeration to be able to aerate it out. They fixed that a couple of years back, and we basically had the fortune of running the existing buildings on that plant without any problems for the last couple of years. But yes, Matt, in answer to your question, the new plan is designed for these new uses. It'll be sized according, but basically it's a replica of the existing one, albeit that the existing one was greatly upgraded maybe several years ago. I think the upgrades were almost as expensive as the plant itself.
And the new one it has all those upgrades in it as well.
Correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the square footage of the buildings?
Oh, yeah, sure. So what you see on the floor plan is basically around 30,000. The floor plate that's on the ground is 30,000 for Building K,
Mhm.
which is about the size of a reference Marshalls or a TJ Maxx. You have on the next building, Building K is, I think, shown as 45,000 square foot floor plate, which is really meant to be 2 to 3 tenants on the ground level. But it's actually been permitted for 60,000 square feet in case we go. It's a little bit of an FAR thing. It's like we could go 2 stories at 30,000, but if we only do single story, it probably would not be more than 45,000. And then Building M, which is opposite which is the hotel side, is a 15,000 square foot floor plan. I think the dimensions are actually shown on the plans in really small letters. If not, I can get the exact ones for you.
Would the hotel be?
Oh, there, it's seen
Store.
on the second.
Yeah, the hotel is obviously going to be 60,000 square feet,
Okay.
with 4 stories like the Marriott. And for reference, the Marriott's floor plate's actually only like 12,000 square feet,
Thank you.
but it should support, La France Hospitality came in 5 years ago with fully permitted plans to build 110 rooms, extended stay Hilton product on that site. Unfortunately, the economics, they got backstabbed by COVID like most developers did. We're kind of excited, and that's probably why we wanted just to at least share with you. We've been quiet for the last couple of years. A lot of people thought I retired or died, so I'm just here to say I'm still alive. And we're hopefully with Jim here as well. We say what we'll do, and hopefully we'll be back in the next couple months with more plans. I don't believe that we can ever over communicate what our agenda is or what we'd like to do. And it's clear that if there's things that you think would be great to include, since we build to own, we probably have a little more flexibility to be accommodating than a lot of developers who are building for Wall Street. And just on the robotics issue, just to digress for a second, it is a great program. And I wasn't hit up this year, but if they need any, funding for that, I'm happy that is actually a really fun initiative if the school is doing it. So if you know who's passing their hat, tell them, feel free to call me. We'd be
Sure,
glad to
we'll
do
pass that on. Thank you.
Sure.
Do you expect you'll need to go back to the planning board for any of the?
Right now, we're fully permanent. We've been progressing along.
Yeah,
It's kind of an interesting, our plans were approved under the overlay district, which, basically crafted a lot of flexibility for us to sort of weave and bob with market conditions. So we are, as long as we don't dramatically change, like if I want to propose a 32-story residential building, I'd probably have trouble, but it's, for the most part, we're looking at 1 or 2 story buildings where appropriate. And it's really limited, I think, to the fact that we won't build more than in total 100,000 square feet on those 3 pads total. So it'll probably be less than what we're permitted for because we don't need to press it that close to the envelope. So
Where on the plans is the second phase of the wastewater treatment is right with the first phase?
yeah, it's right next to it. Actually, if you look back here,
I see
there's a little orange speckle.
Okay,
What people don't realize is that's just the head house. Underneath this entire area is all the processes. So there's huge chambers and tanks underneath here. That sort of is actually the plant. But the controls are these 2 little buildings. One's been built and one is slated
Okay.
for phase 2.
okay, thank you.
All set. Great.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
Next up, DPW.
Yes, this is Mr. Chairman and members of the select board, this is an annual occurrence, that we are near exhaustion of our budgeted snow and ice, and we would just needed a vote to extend beyond that original budget amount. Currently, we're at almost about $169,000 that is spent. And we've got, with 2 more snow events, we've incurred an additional $36,000. And we also have a bill for $31,000 for salt and another 500 ton ordered. So we are quickly coming upon spending beyond the allotted $200,000. So we request the ability to spend beyond it, please.
So we've already had 169 we've spent and we have more that we've encumbered, but we haven't cut the checks.
Correct. Exactly.
And that's before the next 2 storms that are hitting this week.
Well, I think tomorrow is gonna be, it's gonna miss us. It's gonna be south, but.
Thursday and Sunday.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one on Sunday now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, I stand corrected. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
Joy.
I don't see why we should do this. Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D, to approve incurring expenses in excess of the available appropriation for snow and ice removal for fiscal year 2025.
Second,
By Matthew, second by Karen, roll call vote, Matthew,
Matthews, yes.
Karen,
yes,
Mark's a yes.
You're welcome, Steve.
We just didn't follow the private roads.
Oh,
Treasurer, the Mass Clean Water Trust Infrastructure Project.
So this is a request for the board to approve of a new bond. This is the Boxborough water extension. So this is not for the entire amount. The entire amount was approved at the May 1st, 2023 annual town meeting with Article 22 in the amount of $19,200,000. This bond before you this evening is for 15 million. This is sort of an interim step that we're taking to get to that point. Matthew had asked me about this earlier. We do not need to read the entire motion, which I provided to the board earlier, but rather just what's on the screen. So this is in keeping with the other votes taken at town meeting, and this is just a means to actually begin to fund the project, which is underway.
So when I was clerk, I had to read that whole
I
thing.
know, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're trying to relieve you of that.
So my understanding is we're not necessarily bonding this full amount depending on what comes through with Mass DEP and Mass DOT and
That's right.
And the
a whole bunch of state organizations.
Right.
Mass Transit or.
As we understand it too, that LELWD is actively speaking with the state and trying to provide some additional relief with this. So that is possible, but at least authorizing the debt at this time doesn't preclude us from any sort of pay down or things of that nature. So.
And I also spoke with Nick today and the contracts actually came in below what they were anticipating, so they might be in better shape there as well.
Why couldn't that have happened with the sewer? Move that the select board adopt the vote prepared by bond counsel in connection with the interim financing agreement for Massachusetts Clean Water Trust DWEC 12-136.
Dash 23.
As corrected, DWEC 23-136.
Second,
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Documents for you all to sign.
Okay.
Thank you.
Transportation Advisory Council.
Everybody, someone's phone?
Ooh,
Is it Sam's?
yeah.
uh-oh.
Okay.
You can have it. It's a freebie.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. I am here because I wanted to give an update on the Transportation Advisory Council, kind of where it's at, or where it's not at. Mark asked me to do some homework and figure out what some options might be as we look at potentially reconstituting that group or maybe disbanding that group, going forward. My agenda is to give you a little bit of background on the TAC for those who weren't around when this got started. I'm going to quickly go through the first two bullets, kind of just give you some background, and then talk more about the status and challenge, because I want to have more of a dialogue with you all about what you want to do with this group. So first off, the TAC was established back in 2018. It came right out of the master plan, which I was also a member of, and the master plan implementation committee. And it was intended to be a means for us to have a place to talk and work on transportation issues, because there were a number of transportation issues in the master plan, and someone has to carry the water and moving these things forward going as part of after the master plan, in effect. Map plan's only good as if you kind of keep referencing and working off of it. So the charge, the next slide, the charge was to promote collaboration in the town in dealing with transportation issues, because transportation issues don't reside in just one body or one entity in the town. They're complex, and it's more than just more roads and paving roads and things like that. So there's a couple of things I want to note in the work plan that was identified, that we would establish collective goals and priorities, removing the means of transportation in the town, consistent with the master plan vision, and we would present goals and recommendations to the planning board and board of selectmen annually. Those are kind of our objectives. The background further, the membership that was agreed to with the select board was that we would have, this was not intended to be a separate committee. The term council is important here, because I remember at the time there was a discussion about having another committee that maybe is not fully staffed, and what does that look like? And it was like, no, these are people who all have skin in the game regarding transportation in the town. So it was agreed on with the select board. This was a discussion that it would comprise of people who already had roles in the town. Select board that had to do with transportation issues, select board, planning board, finance, BPAC, disability, and council on aging, and that we would have 3 at-large members as well. And then we would get input from the DPW, elder services, et cetera. So next slide, please. And then we were having issues with quorums. It's a rare thing in Littleton, I know. We were having issues with quorums. And so we adjusted the charge in 2021 to add additional at-large members so that they would be alternates. So they would count in the positive if they were there, but if they weren't there, they wouldn't count against us. And that was good in theory if we had people willing to fill those positions. And the other thing that we talked about at that time was to continuity, was that when you have representation from other boards, they are floating through here every year or two and changing. And to have continuity, it would be good to go from year to year, because you don't want to figure this all out every single 2 years, what the heck we're doing. So the at-large members, the other reason why we added at-large members was for that reason. So, and then quickly note, I'm the original chair of the TAC. I advocated for its creation coming out of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and I've been staying on the board as a member since it was started in 2018. I am not the chair, despite what the agenda says tonight, of the TAC. I'm just a member, but the only member actually left of the large members in the TAC. So quickly background on how it operates. We meet every 2 months. This is the typical agenda. I won't read it, but this is kind of what we typically cover. It's really more of a check-in and just a status of what's going on in town at relates to transportation. And sometimes there's an issue that we might want to tackle or talk about, like some potential improvements that are on an intersection or something like that, and just discuss it. But for the most part, it's really just a check-in. And once, since the board was established, was I asked for yearly input? Was the TAC asked for input, despite what you saw in the charge? And only once have I met with the select board, and that was when I asked about quorums and issues with that and what to do about it. So there's little happening in terms of means of setting goals and priorities. Actually, the prior DPW director before this one really didn't want to hear from us about setting priorities in the roads, because he thought that was his job to set priorities about which road deep paving and things like that, which we didn't argue with. But in terms of some of the things that we said we were going to do as part of the group never really happened. Like, briefing you guys, setting goals, setting priorities, those kind of things. That really just ended up not happening. But we did do a few things that I think are worth noting, and I'm just going to quickly note what some of those things were. The next slide, please. I think one of the things that I think that was most beneficial was the second bullet was Maren, our town planner. I think she appreciated having a belly button to send information of things that were kind of coming across her desk and saying, "Hey, do you guys want to weigh in on this?" And I think that was a good thing because it made a job easier. Just send it to the chair of the TAC and they would get it to the people who are at least members of the TAC, so at least they have interest in the transportation issues. I personally lobbied successfully for getting some mitigation funds to pay for the bicycle pedestrian master plan. If I had done ask for it, we wouldn't have got it. Simply put, I just had the idea, and Anthony was open to the idea, and we got it. We've been talking about that bike pedestrian master plan for 10 years, and that was really just a matter of asking. And the last bullet kind of similar to what I've mentioned. Maren would just send something to us, and we would provide input. And we provided input on a variety of mass dot plans and what to do with the MART shuttle and what to do with funds we were getting from Workers Credit Union, which you still have $5,000, just so you know, $5,000 from Workers Credit Union that really hasn't gone anywhere yet. So there's still stuff out there that we've weighed in on. Other things, early on, we took, I think next slide, please. We did do some advocacy and advocated for a mass trails grant for that bridge across the brook at Cooper Farm. But I think the biggest one here is that I think we have changed some of the mindset in town. I think we've improved the mindset of continuing the complete streets advocacy, which started before us, but that we want to have not just roads that for cars, we want roads that are for bicycles, pedestrians, and other types of things. And I think we've helped change that mindset in town, in my opinion. So I think we have done some good work in the last 7 years. But where are we now? So next slide. So we have not met since the spring of 2024. We've had a couple of times we've tried having meetings, but we didn't have enough of a quorum. So we don't have a current chair. Michael Garrow stepped down in the summertime. We continue to have issues with quorums over the last few years. The main reason, in my opinion, is that of those who were appointed to the TAC from the other boards, it was 50-50 whether they would show up. So if they were going to be charged with this, then I would request that they would honor that position. I know select board and other board members are busy and they have other things, but honestly, if that they shouldn't be assigned if they're not going to be able to show up. And we tried adjusting those meeting times to accommodate everybody, and it's always tough because we have members who are paid employees. We don't want to have them attending another meeting at 7 o'clock at night. They don't have to, so we'd have these meetings typically around 4 to 5 o'clock or something. So we get an ebb tide time between people who are working, have other day jobs, and people who are town employees. But it doesn't matter what we did. We typically had trouble getting people to show up. So of the 6 other boards, it would rotate. Sometimes it would be planning board, sometimes it would be disability. But I would say consistently, half the board of the other board members would show up, and half of them wouldn't. Just every year might be a different group who wouldn't show up. And then we have yet to have, I think, all the 3 at-large positions filled at any time. Maybe in the last 2 out of the last 7 years, we've had all 3 at-large positions filled. So, and then there's why are we doing this? Why are we meeting? The meetings that we have are, again, they're mostly just a check-in. And so the question to ask is, why are we doing this? And so that's a valid question. We're not really honoring the charge that we had originally. So going back to the charge that Mark gave me, when he asked me to look into some of the things to do, I talked with, next slide. I talked with those who have been active in this group, those are listed there, and asked for some feedback about what do you want to see in this group? What do you think we should be doing with this? And this is where I want to spend a little more time telling you what I heard. That some of the input was that we've had trouble with meeting this group as it's constituted, getting attendance and getting active participation. And so, sometimes I think people don't even realize what the meeting is for. They use the agenda to talk about other things that aren't necessarily transportation because they got a voice. And so, the structure is not functioning as it was intended, simply put. Either in terms of getting people from at large or getting participation from the other boards. Others thought that that they'd like to see it continue, that we talk about things that we wouldn't otherwise bring up. It's a place for those committees like the BPAC and others to have a place at the table and hear what's going on. That gives them a chance to talk to some of those folks in the boards that they maybe wouldn't engage with otherwise. So there's an opportunity there that wouldn't be there if they didn't have this. We saw the accomplishments that we've made in the last 7 years, and I think some of those would have happened without us, but some of them wouldn't have happened without us. So there's been some value over the years. Mark actually suggested the third bullet was maybe if we gave them taskings, some more advocacy type of taskings to do. Maybe, that's more of a focus and maybe that would be of some value. My personal opinion is these are all volunteers. And if you want us to do a traffic study, we should hire consultants to do traffic studies and those kinds of things. And if you want us to oversee that kind of work, that's fine. But I don't think we should be doing lead work. I think we should be to oversight work, but not doing any actual studies ourselves. We're not professionals to do that kind of thing. So some mixture of that might be okay, but we have no budget assigned to us. So that would be another issue. And then the other part was overarching. Maybe we don't need this anymore. There is some sentiment that the select board and others are more keen to some of these issues. This group started with Keith Bergman, who was very interested in transportation issues, and I think when he was the town administrator. And there's the select board does not. The select board and the other boards are more attuned to some of these issues. They're not being neglected in effect. And so that goes to the prior comment about we changed the mentality. And so maybe there was less of a need for an advocacy group for doing this kind of thing. That the good work we've done has rubbed off and there's less of a need. But also, so that's a possibility. So what do we do about it? So the last slide is some ideas or some options that I'm kind of just dropping on your lap to give you as I don't have a recommendation. I'm just kind of throwing out some things for you to consider, and I'll give you my opinion if you want, and when we're done. But first option is, next slide, please.
I don't think that this is what we have as your last slide.
Well, I know I had the last slide.
I can see options going forward in the past.
They're in the
Okay.
packet.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, so the options going forward, for those who don't have the slides and you can't see them, was one, decide to keep it or not. So we keep it. And my options going after that is if we keep it, what do we do about it? But if we don't keep it, disbanding is an option. Lack of participants, lack of at-large volunteers. Even if you decide you want to keep it, that's a real issue. You got to have fannies in the seat to fill this group. And so people who care about these issues. So if you decide you want to keep it, we kind of have to address the issue of who's going to be on this group. But if you do keep it, then you could maintain the TAC as it is, but I don't know, somehow light a fire under those and the other committees to actually show up and be part of this if they're going to be assigned to this group. or, so that would be one, because that, if they showed up, then we'd have quorums. And as it's intended, if intended is supposed to be cross communication between boards and they're not showing up, it's really not doing what it's supposed to do. So another option, if you keep the TAC, would restructure it. You get rid of, maybe get rid of some of the other town boards that maybe haven't contributed that much or haven't contributed. I'm not talking about individuals so much, but haven't contributed issues related to what the groups that they represent haven't been that bigger driver. So, finance, for example, and maybe, disability committee would be two that I'd probably recommend could come off, and I don't think it would change what we're trying to do very much. Go with all at-large members as a possibility, assuming we could find folks. That would be another possibility. It would address the continuity issue. And obviously the people from the other boards would be welcome to attend, but they wouldn't feel compelled to attend because I know they're stretched thin. Another option would be, that was discussed as a possibility, was merge the function with BPAC. There's a perception in town that BPAC covers, like, if you're overlapping circles, that there's a lot of overlap between BPAC and TAC. I personally don't agree with that. BPAC has specific goals and objectives, which relates to bicycle pedestrian, and the Transportation Advisory Council was intended to service and to address transportation as a function and a service, not just, sharing the roads. I mean, we should be looking at traffic studies. We should be looking at the Sand Park development, and we should be involved with that kind of thing when it comes to traffic studies and be part of that. So it's not just BPAC, right? It's other things. That was an option that was thrown out there by some folks. And then obviously reassess the charge, and that probably goes with any of the above. What do you want this TAC to do? So I kind of put it, I think we serve at your leisure. What does the select board want to do with this group? Do they see a value in it? And what are their thoughts about how to reconstitute this? Just so you know, one last comment about my role. I've been on this group since 2018. I got it started. I'm proud of the fact that the fact that I did that, and I think I think I helped make a difference in town, but I'm not looking to take it over again. I have other things in my life going on right now, and so I'm happy to be a member, but I'm not looking to pick up the flag and keep this thing going on my own. No committee or no council or no idea can sustain itself on the backs of one person. It has to have life on its own. So I'm willing to be part of the solution, but I'm not looking to drive the solution, if you know what I mean. So I know it's a mouthful, so thank you. I just open up to your thoughts.
So I'll start with a little bit of background, because I have been actually attending quite a few of the TAC meetings since I was on the board, and and the BPAC meetings actually too, when they don't conflict with other meetings that I have to attend. And I do agree that there isn't a complete overlap between the groups. There's a fair overlap on the memberships. I think of the people that are passionate about it seem to go to both sets of meetings. But they're not necessarily one and the same. Like the BPAC wouldn't take up, anything going on with the MBTA or shuttle services in town or things like that. They probably wouldn't weigh in on, the 495 bridge replacement so much, other than we need a bike lane, right? So I think there is value to the TAC. I just don't know how to make it a vibrant committee going forward and give it more of a charge. And when Gary and I talked about this a while ago, it was because we were pretty much the last people standing at the meetings and trying to figure out how to make this a productive, if it would be productive or if it wouldn't be, it wasn't worth keeping.
So I think that there are some organizations, committees that are driven by a need, and some that are kind of more personality driven, like people who have a specific interest or cause. And you mentioned Keith, and clearly you've been super invested in this, which is awesome. But I wonder if it isn't time to say goodbye to it, and allow anyone who wants to take up the mantle, as it were. Let's find something with a specific charge for them to do. Because getting rid of meetings and committees is the hardest thing in the world, but it's so, so necessary sometimes. You know?
Mhm.
And not to diminish what's been done, but it does seem to be more like focused on, like this committee seems to be more focused on the people who have been doing these things and less on the specific need that was identified for the committee to achieve, I guess.
Yeah, so just to comment on that, I don't think we ended up really doing the things that we said we were going to do. Why is that? Different chairmen come on board and have different, objectives and what they're trying to do and things. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of evolved into what it was.
And even more of a sort of demonstration of this was some people who really cared about something, who wanted to like make a difference and had ideas about it, rather than being driven by process or a goal or a specific outcome from a document or
Yeah, and so I think if you go back to our charge, I mean, there was about 12 items in the master plan that related to transportation, and so that was the genesis of those things,
Yeah.
and we've been trying to work those things in effect. That was a bit of a charge that we had.
So just to play devil's advocate on that a bit, I mean, we just spent how long at the end of the year talking about whether to lift a truck exclusion, right? And none of us up here were experts on
That's true.
whether we should be doing that or not. And it'd be really nice to turn it over to someone else to do the investigative work, and not necessarily you're the expert on it, but at least maybe you have more interest and bandwidth or focus on that than we do. And just pointing at you since you're representing the committee, we were asked for feedback on the 495 bridge replacement deck. And I mean, everyone could weigh in, but it would be nice to have someone that's, their charter is like gathering that feedback and filling out those forms and advocating for what we want. Because I mean, I don't have the time.
No, I don't
to
either.
keep up with all of it, but if someone, and maybe it's not so much a committee that meets regularly, but they're more like a standing committee that, when these issues come up, there's a group that we can turn to.
I was going to say, I don't know if there's enough work for someone to do this all the time,
Right.
but you're right. You're absolutely right. It would be great to hand it to someone who was interested in it, invested in it, and wanted to find out answers for us.
I know you guys would be measuring what you asked for, right? Because these people are volunteers with a variety of backgrounds, and they're not going to be the ones who are going to do
I'm not asking
traffic
for-
study or
yeah,
to do
yeah, yeah.
like, the pros and cons of that. I would hope you would give us resources from the town to like work with, who are potentially equipped, or consultants that would then do the legwork and, pull that forward and say, here's select board, like a subcommittee in effect for you guys.
Yeah, basically.
I guess, in the 495 example, I'm questioning whether another layer would have been helpful in that regard. I mean, we did get the ask disseminated across the people who needed to look at it, and we got their feedback. I'm not sure that adding another layer to that would have been productive or efficient. You sort of precluded my question, which was, when have we missed TAC since they stopped meeting in spring of 2024? And you've brought up a couple examples, but if I'm understanding Gary correctly, I think he's sort of saying, we can give you our opinions, but we're not subject matter experts per se, and we can't take the place of subject matter experts or consultants.
But it is a place for those who are, for the citizens, or for those who have an interest in this, to participate that when they wouldn't have otherwise participated. So I don't think you're going to go for these guys for the answers necessarily, but it's a place to get input from those who care about the issue that's kind of already in place,
Mhm.
and a group that would then also be a good forum to discuss the particulars about those things outside of, this type of session.
And what does that look like? when the membership is changing and in flux
That's okay.
and you're not meeting regularly.
Well, regularly it was every 2 or 3 months. We were meeting every 2 months until this past year.
Mhm.
And so we did kind of have, we were always attuned to what was going on in the town
Mhm.
and what was coming up, and Maren would keep us abreast of what was potentially coming. And there was a couple of times I can think of when they talked about a shuttle service related to, kind of related to Amazon that was being done, you know, where we pulled together an ad hoc meeting to talk about what some of those things were.
Mhm.
So I think you guys haven't seen it, and I say you guys, the select board hasn't seen it, partly because there hasn't been a regular forum for check-in. Okay, sometimes you'd have a member like Mark who's active, and so he could come back to you guys and talk about what's going on. The other half the time, there was nobody from the select board there, and so you have a mixed bag of, you know, knowing what's going on with the TAC or what it is you want them to do. Because at least if a select board member was present, then you had a chance for us to engage with them.
Mhm.
But a lot of times there were years that you guys had nobody from the select board attended a meeting for 2 years. And we didn't come to you. We went to ask for goals or objectives like it was asked for in the charge. So you don't know what you don't know.
There's other examples of things that like the TAC could do, like, I mean, we get the MBTA advisory emails all the time, and I don't know if anyone ever attends an MBTA meeting. I've attended a couple of them when they talk about electrification. But we don't necessarily know what's going on unless you're actively paying attention. I don't know how much the TAC was paying attention on that. There was the whole issue, the state just did that study on improving Route 2 from, I don't know, from Gardner to Concord or close. And we weren't necessarily paying attention to that, and I don't know who would have represented us at those meetings either, right? And when the state was doing the presentations without the TAC, right?
Why wouldn't want the person who would otherwise be serving on TAC and the select board attend that meeting?
Yes, I've been attending, yes. So, yeah, but now you're basically making a select board member a committee of one to
Mhm.
attend and report back on things, right? And becoming more of a subject matter expert than necessarily the committee.
I mean, I think there's a place for that kind of in between to not carry the water completely, but do some legwork, right? In between, you know, when you have something coming up and then have a chance to fall back with that. So there's a place for that, I think. Put it this way, if it's not doing it right now, the group could do those things if it was decided that's what you guys wanted the TAC to do.
Comments?
I think, I think, the mission as it stands now is probably done. I think the fact that you're having such a hard time getting people to show up and find a quorum is evidence that, you know, that there isn't a core group that's super invested. So I would suggest disbanding it and finding other ways to contribute, because I hate seeing anyone who wants to help not help.
You
Okay.
don't like the on-call status idea?
I mean, I do like that idea, and I'm not convinced there's enough things that we could use that they'd be effective at, but I could be wrong. We can absolutely try it. I just wonder if it languishes, if it sort of languishes for 6 months or 9 months or a year, and we call them up, is anyone still going to be invested in doing it?
That's the part, that's the mechanics part, right? The pragmatic part that I'm not sure how we would make work. If we don't have anything for 6 months and we, you know, put out the bat signal, is anybody going to be paying attention or available?
That's a
to
fair
talk?
question. If just thinking on my feet, if I was gonna, if that was kind of what you wanted to have, is it would be less about having the obligation to talk every 2 months about stuff that really hasn't changed much, because things don't really change that much in 2 months. But but it seems practical to have a mostly at-large group that would, with engagement from DPW, with engagement from Elder Services periodically, and just at least every 6 months. There's usually, yeah, and just as a way of finding what's going on, confirming with things, and then being available on as an ad hoc basis if something comes up to weigh in on those kinds of things. That I think is a more focused role and a maybe a lesser expectation that could be within reason. And people are busy and maybe that kind of thing. It can also adapt to who we get for volunteers and see where they want to go with it. I mean, I started the NRG thing coming out of the TAC because I cared about that. And then it kind of did that separately from TAC, but you know, those things can happen organically. So that's a possibility. I mean, I was going to offer up if you guys get rid of it, because I have a background in engineering and because I have interest in these kind of things, I was willing to be on your back call. So when you do have something personally, did you want to like run by me? Like Marion sent me a copy of the Highway 495 crossing and I provided comments just because I have some background on the subject. You know, I just a citizen, I'm willing to do that kind of thing. But you know, I don't have to be an attack to do that personally.
Mhm.
So I'm at the point where I'm kind of torn on this one because I think it has value, but if you're the only member at large, then
Yes,
then it doesn't have as much value as a committee as opposed to me just sending you all the emails. That
don't give me all the emails, but I do think a push to get more members, if we could come up with what a focused charge was and put the word out for volunteers, you could see what we get.
Do you think BPAC would be open to expanding their mandate to include?
They weren't
these
interested
things?
when I brought that up.
Why don't I work with you and we'll see if we can put out a charge and
More
if
focused
we
charge.
can't find members, then we'll talk about disbanding.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Neshoba Board of Health.
Well, all right, Mr. Chairman. So this is as a result of the conversation that took place on Super Saturday. So June 30th with the deadline fast approaching, what's next for for support when the health director is on vacation or extended leave for some reason or anything like that? There has to be a mechanism that needs to be established to, in the event, there is an event, some kind of a health event, then there needs to be an individual to go to that for questions and answers in some direction. And so he or she can converse with our Board of Health. We have been reaching out to neighboring communities and we keep just going out a little further and further and further to establish an IMA for such things. And it's requiring a conversation that explaining like, no, the person doesn't have to be here if our health director is gone for 2 weeks or anything like that. It's really a matter of a point of contact in the event there is something. But ultimately, other than that, anything normal everyday routines are already established and can continue as is with maybe check-in or a conversation with the chair on the Board of Health. So we continue to explore the IMA. We did confirm with town council that an IMA is appropriate with the community. But we just continue to explore a community that has the ability to do that, to partner with us. And we would
Found one yet?
not yet. And we would reciprocate also, obviously. That would be something that is clearly, and to make it as simple as possible. So it's not like, okay, well, you did 3 hours and so we'll pay you X amount of dollars and nothing like that. It's really just a professional courtesy, if you say, through the IMA. So we continue to explore that and understanding that we have a deadline fast approaching.
So are we talking like reciprocal fees or we're just paying
I'm sorry?
how, do we have any idea? What are we proposing as the structure to these communities? You said you've reached out,
Right.
right? And so far, no one's taken the bait, right? But are we proposing like we're going to pay their director, we're giving them any fees they would collect? Or,
Well, we were open for that discussion, but it was because it is such a thing just to be a point of contact because someone is on vacation. If that's being proposed by a potential community, then, absolutely, we'll entertain anything, but it's not my intent. It's really just looking at a professional courtesy back and forth. He or she would be available to us and Francis would be available to reciprocate within that community is basically what the goal is. But if we have to look at some kind of a financial agreement, then we'll work that out with town council.
and are we differentiating between like standard services and an emergency service? Like Francis is out for a week of it for vacation, so we don't, he doesn't have anything scheduled. He's planning a vacation, but all of a sudden, there's an emergency inspection that has to happen or something hits the
Right.
fan and we need someone for that versus Francis is going to be away for a month and we have things that have to happen in that month.
Right.
Are we approaching them together or separately or?
No, we'll hit it together. I mean, that would be worked out through the IMA in the event of an extended leave. How do we work that out? And something that during, we have a health crisis or some situation in the community, then town council is prepared to work out those details, but you first have to find the willing partner.
And this is independent from the IMA with Acton for the nurse
Correct.
that is still going through the paperwork.
That is, we have provided the requested, the recommended changes to the IMA from town council. The select board in Acton did adopt the agreement as presented, which does not include the changes. And the town manager had expressed to me, dependent upon the level of changes, we may have to go back to the Acton Select Board to adopt that. So, and this was after, there was a warning that town council is working on it, please continue it, but they continue to move forward to adopt it. So we'll continue to communicate with that, work
Okay.
that through those details.
Okay. Are we looking at private? I assume there's nothing private we can look at. We have to, it's only municipalities for,
I have not even looked at private. Okay,
okay, thank you.
thank you.
Human resources.
This is a typical vote to request to exempt and disclosure for a town employee that will hold multiple positions. It's often done as you've expressed through Parks and Rec. Here, it's being done through the school department. Mr. Austin would have multiple positions within the school department, whether it be on call or part-time basis, and the request is for to being deemed an exempt, make an exemption, the request of Mr. Lynn.
Basically, I work at the Tigers Den as a substitute teacher.
Any discussion?
Sorry, so this exemption is in addition to the substitute teacher, it's also for the Tigers Den work and athletic department work.
Right. Taking tickets, doing school board, something like that on a as needed basis.
I'm just surprised they can't, I mean, the number of high school students who are scrambling for volunteer hours, I'm surprised they can't find folks to man that, but I take them at their word. So, I'm good.
Thank you.
Move that the select board vote to acknowledge a disclosure by a municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract and approve the exemption request of Austin Lynn as a municipal employee in accordance with MGL Chapter 268A, Section 20B.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, public input members update. Start.
Sure. I say this, I think, once a year. I want to thank DPW's excellent plowing activity. I spoke to a charming young man yesterday morning who hadn't slept yet. And I know that they stay up all night and they plow the roads and they don't get nearly enough credit. So I want to thank them for all the hard work that they do. And I tell them how much I appreciate it. And I want to also do a brief update on the orchard. We have scheduled a meeting for this Wednesday, the 12th at 6:30 in room 103 with John Bransfield, who is a potential lessee for the property. That meeting will be only about a question and answer session about his plans for the orchard. We're not going to discuss the process of lease versus sell. We have scheduled an MAPC meeting to discuss that specific item and like an overarching discussion of the process and, you know, are we leasing, are we going back to sell for town meeting on March 10th?
March 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry, March 6th. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Is it the 6th?
I believe so.
It's also in room 103. I think it is, you're right. It's the 6th. That's on the town calendar. We'll continue to update it. And we got a letter from MDAR. They have done they hold the preservation restriction on the orchard and did a monitoring report and noted we were out of compliance. They sent us a letter. Should the town be unable to secure a leasing operator for the 25 growing season, the department will consider the property to have entered a second year towards abandonment status, which may result in violation of the terms. Although the town has made some concerted efforts to address the property's use, the department requests the town provide a firmer timeline within 60 days, along with the business plan and a map showing proposed uses and locations. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that MDAR is not that they are very serious about enforcing the APR. And I think people poo-poo the idea that they could come in and do something with the land, but they have the right to take it over if they want. So we will continue to work as quickly as possible on getting this property in agricultural use.
Two other things on the orchard. We're looking to schedule another meeting with MAPC in early April to talk more about the parts that aren't necessarily covered by the lease, like the house, and longer plans on that. We should hopefully know the date of that hopefully by the 12th. What else was I going to say on the orchard? Oh, all the information about Bransfield is in a packet that's online, so people can see the management plans and the APR restrictions. Everything should have all the information people need to review Bransfield's proposal and how we got here.
Before
The meeting, the packet.
So the
was
meeting
supposed to be-
packet, yeah, for the meeting on the 12th.
Yes, so, and
Right.
thank you to Ryan for putting that together so quickly.
That's all.
I wanted to thank Rotary Club of Neshoba Valley. On Saturday, I attended the Rise Against Hunger thing they sponsored at Littleton High School, where we packaged 18,000 meals for people who need them. It was an amazing turnout. Lots of high school students. I believe it was co-sponsored by the Honor Society there at the high school, and it was a great event. I wanted to thank them for putting that on and for including the entire community in that. So, that's it.
So I attended the Neshoba Valley, the tech school breakfast. What is it, last week?
Mhm.
Week,
Sounds good.
something, 2 weeks ago, where they presented their budget and what they do over there is very impressive. And they do it fairly on a fairly shoestring budget for the services they provide. So It was very impressed. I also wanted to announce that starting with our meeting on March 10th, we will be meeting in room 103 rather than in this room. For any meeting that is not a joint meeting with like FinCom or something where it just doesn't fit so well in 103. So we will be moving to 103. So any updates on the other projects?
Go ahead, Nathan.
Sure. A couple project updates. We're still on target for March 10th for the opening on the center on Shattuck Street for at least to be at substantial completion. We are working currently with our audio visual vendor to get in as quickly as possible once we have a contract locked down to get in and do work in the large group room as well as to do installation work on the LCTV studio there. There will be landscaping that'll be taking place after that. The contract will be coming back in the April-May timeframe to finish that. But we are looking to have a ribbon cutting ceremony sometime after town meeting. So once all of that activities beyond, hopefully past us, and to be able to do an event there for that. For 36 King Street, the PMBC last week approved of a number of change orders associated with what we need to actually keep open and to a lot of structural issues and unexpected things we didn't see. That timeframe for that building is a little bit later, looking in the likely in the May timeframe in terms of substantial completion on that end. So we're talking now with vendors for moving. So movers will come in and take the school equipment and Parks and Rec. So with that, we're fairly close and getting to the end of that project as well.
If I can just do a quick update on the Neshoba Valley. So the chief of the 13 communities with the chief is spearheading a smaller group of 4 chiefs that act as the representative for all 13 communities. They have, as you all know, we went and we met with the chair of the Ways and Means with Senator Eldridge, and beyond that, there was a local delegation, both Senator Eldridge and Representative Arciero. Littleton was well represented to administration and finance recently. The legislators did meet with the secretariat for the governor's office in regards to the financial investment as a result of the closure that's going on. The chief, along with the 3 other chiefs, will be meeting on this Thursday with A&F to talk specific dollar amounts and numbers and understanding and any questions that A&F may have. So we're optimistic. We continue to be optimistic with the progress of meeting with the Ways and Means, and then now having 2 separate meetings with A&F. In regards to the opening of a new location, the chiefs also recently met with the CEO of UMass Medical Center to go through a number of different issues of questions and understanding the needs of the 13 communities. And they are looking at a number of different sites. And it is once, and for the timing wise, once it's been determined the location, and depending on once that is in the ownership of UMass, then it would take approximately 18 to 24 months to make it into the emergency center that has been discussed. So things continue to move forward, and thank you to our state delegation, Senator Eldridge and Representative Arciero, for their efforts and their support in this in trying to support this to come to fruition. That's it.
So on the MSBA Shaker Lane, Finance Chair Venuti threw together a nice website or webpage off of our site, the financial calculator. So people can go and see roughly what the tax impact of the new school would be at its current projected cost and reimbursements and everything else. So he did a really nice job, and I thank him for that, and I suggest everyone go check that out.
And just to say, Mr. Chairman, the Shaker Lane School Building Committee is meeting again tomorrow at 7. One of the things we're going to be talking about is looking at construction manager at risk versus standard procurement process. We've used construction manager at risk with good results here at the library and at the center of Shattuck Street. So I want to necessarily say that that is where we'll end up, but we'll say we have had some good experience with that. So we'll be discussing, that's one of the things, topics on our agenda tomorrow night.
Public input.
Charlotte Russell, Foster Street. I'm here as a friend of the Neshoba Praying Indians about the orchard. And I respectfully urge the select board to consider the document that was given to you by the Littleton Conservation Trust. Considering the proximity of the orchard to Native American lands and the importance of these sacred landscapes that are already part of conservation lands in Littleton, I really hope that the Neshoba Praying Indians will have a fair chance at some opportunity to regain stewardship of that land. Thank you.
I'm Joanne Derry from Howard Avenue, and I wanted to talk about the orchard as well. I wanted to say thank you to whoever it was that put together the FAQ on the town website. It's really cogent and helpful. Thank you. It's great. I still really think it would be a mistake for the town to lease the orchard. We've already shown that we're not good at managing a lease. You know, the orchard's a wonderful asset, and it comes with a house that used to be an asset, but now it's a liability because the pipes were let to freeze. We just don't have the expertise, the money to manage this lease. And we've already shown that the last lease collapsed, and that's why we're in the position we are now. So I really think that the town should put it to a vote at town meeting again and try to, you know, educate people first. I think if people realized the liability to the town of continuing to own it, that we would get, you know, a better result at town meeting and be able to sell the orchard. Sad as I am about that, it's really the best resolution for the orchard and for the town. So I wanted to know, is there any chance that the select board will have an article to sell the orchard on the town meeting in May, on the warrant?
So we are still negotiating the lease currently. There is potential that we put an article out to sell the house. We haven't really discussed that as a full board yet. The house isn't included in any of the lease negotiations because it's uninhabitable and it cannot be leased. So we will be looking to do something with the house separate from the rest of the property. I don't know what the status will be for the property as far as an article for sale.
So,
Because we are negotiating with the tenant currently, so
with 3
Bransfield.
possible tenants, correct?
just Bransfield. Only one, we're only negotiating with Bransfield.
So are the others off the table then?
Bransfield is the only one we're negotiating with at the moment. If we don't go with Bransfield, then we'll be starting the process over,
Okay.
either for a sale or a lease.
And regarding the house, like a couple of years ago at the Orchard Working Group meetings, there was talk of doing some kind of restriction on the house so that if someone were to purchase it, they couldn't make it gigantic or, you know, 3-story. It would have to be pretty much a similar footprint to what it is now. Is there any thought of doing that just to protect what it looks like basically?
The
And,
historical commission's looking at putting in a historical preservation restriction on the
Okay.
house.
and is there any chance that the select board would consider putting an article again to the town in the Maytown warrant for the actual orchard to sell that instead of leasing?
I think the MAPC meeting that we're having is basically to discuss the process with the residents and people who want to come and give input. And it's partially educational session and information session for people to understand where we are and how we got here.
Mhm.
And also for us to listen to what you have to say about what you think we should do
So it's,
in order to inform us, I think, for the
Right.
board to make a decision one way or the other.
so it's not impossible that it
It's not
could,
impossible. At this
Okay.
point, we don't have any plans to bring an article that would sell the orchard.
do you know when the warrant will close?
Be the next, I don't know what the specific date is, but next couple months.
2 more months?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm Christine Nordhaus, Star Hill. My experience and living situation give me an extremely comprehensive perspective on the orchard. I'm married to Matthew. I'm a farmer. I'm a board officer of the Littleton Conservation Trust, and I'm a former member of the Littleton Agricultural Commission. I got ousted from my AgCom seat in 2018 for pushing the town to deal with the orchard. Back then, I poked way too many bears. That select board's failure to plan ahead ruined the orchard and put the land at risk of seizure for noncompliance with the APR. So instead of dealing with it, they booted the squeaky wheel off AgCom and pushed the responsibility down the road to this board. This board made hard decisions to protect the land, even if that meant that they had to sell it. When the vote to sell the orchard failed, I kept myself informed on the potential tenants. When the management plans came back with the RFP responses, I read them. And aside from members of the select board and working group, I haven't spoken to a single other person in town who has read these publicly available documents, most notably those yelling the loudest that they weren't included in the process. Everyone needs to put the pitchforks down and do their homework, because what's best for the land is written in black and white in those management plans. I want to return the land to the Neshoba Praying Indians, but based on their management plan, they won't be ready to farm the land in accordance with the APR for several years at minimum, and not without significant financial investment from the town. I'm not opposed to that investment, but if the land isn't farmed in accordance with the APR, MDAR will take it. The town's RFI process provided MDAR with multiple proposals to buy it that far outranked the Neshoba tribes from an agricultural standpoint. And agriculture is what MDAR is there for. Bransfield's proposal to restore the land through permaculture farming is a dream come true for that land. Apple orchards are extremely herbicide and pesticide intensive. Bransfield's permaculture plan will undo the environmental devastation caused by decades of those farming practices in use at the orchard. To do what's best for the land, we have to take the long view. So here is what I propose. First, I recommend the town sign a 20-year lease with Mr. Bransfield for the barns and APR lands. He will restore the land to a condition that will be so much healthier, which equates to more productive, agriculturally speaking, than it is now, or even as it was as an orchard. This is a service that he will be providing that we could never, ever, ever afford to pay for as a town. And he'll be paying us to perform it. This type of restoration takes time. And if you're unfamiliar with permaculture farming, you should read up on it because it's incredibly cool. Or you could do your homework and read the management plan. So my second suggestion is that we give the house and the non-APR lands, if that's allowable under procurement law, to the Neshoba Praying Indians to restore while Bransfield tackles the APR lands. Just give it to them. The NPI can get ready to take over the APR land when the lease is up. And the town can steer everything in that direction because the voters clearly want that now. I know that by rights, the Neshoba Praying Indians shouldn't have to wait a minute longer to return to their ancestral land, but the APR exists. We are all legally bound by it. We're out of compliance and at very real risk of losing our say in what happens to it. So I think if you're as passionate as I am about returning the land to its rightful owners, first, let's keep it from being seized and give Mr. Bransfield 20 years to restore it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dustin Neal, 17 Lakeshore Drive, also currently the president of the Littleton Conservation Trust. I want to thank everyone for their passionate comments tonight and along the way. Also, thank you to the board for the FAQs that were produced. They were very helpful to both highlight where there's flexibility for what's included in the lease potentially versus what's not. So I'm here to encourage to keep the lease as small as possible to satisfy the APR, because it's clear that the APR satisfying the APR is the major motivation, both in terms of timing and the letter of being able to stay within the bounds of that agreement. I think there's good options for what to do with the non-APR land. So I very much encourage the board to think about all possibilities, whatever the combination of APR land to a lessee versus non-APR land that's set aside for sale or some other plan to give folks a fair chance to acquire it, I think would be very prudent. I'm glad that the MAPC process is continuing. I think in addition to the large amount of public input that the town has seen over the last couple of weeks, I think that voice will also be amplified in the output that comes from the MAPC. At least I'm hopeful of that. So I'd encourage you to not commit to a lease until you hear that feedback as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on, dirigible.
Well, it's a one day, before you, Mr. Chairman, we've got a one day liquor license request from Dirigible for a liquor license for March 14th, 2025 from 6 to 9 p.m. for the mini golf fundraising event here at the library. That's an annual event, which is it's pretty impressive, and no one has everything has been filed appropriately with liability insurance, and the appropriate departments have signed off on the event.
I love mini golf. I'm just gonna say that right now. Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Colin Nurk and Christopher Loring of Dirigible Brewing Company, LLC, for wine and malt beverages to be served during the Friends of the Reuben Hoare Library's mini golf event on Friday, March 14th, 2025, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes. This is going to be your favorite meeting ever, Matt.
It's already my favorite. I did not have any corrections.
I didn't have any comments on the minutes either.
All good. All right. Move that the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the joint select board meeting with Finance Committee on January 21st, 2025, and the select board meeting on January 27th, 2025.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Go home and see the wife.